Anyone, any questions?
Can I just clarify then?
Yes, please.
So when we were reading through that first paragraph on page 2, up the top, I had the impression that it was at the gross level of everything, but am I right in thinking that it's also like at a microscopic level, at a...
The dependent arisings?
No, yeah, that whole process, it happens at a microscopic level as well for everything.
Now, what does that mean?
That's what I want to know. So that whole process happens for every thought, every action, every half thought,
Yes.
everything, right down to very, very basic levels. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, every condition phenomenon.
Yeah. Okay.
Every condition may not, whether it is physical, from the most gross level of physical to the most smallest atoms.
Yeah.
To the most gross state of mind, to more subtle state of mind, as long as they are conditioned phenomena, they all have same. Depending on its cause and conditions. Everything arises from cause and conditions.
So if we say that our thoughts are actions, and that means our thoughts are also karma as well.
Yes, karma can be created with a thought.
Thought itself, karma.
When we talk about karma, the intentions is known as karma. Also, as well as the actions, physical and verbal actions that comes or arise with that thought, also karma. In Abhidharma Kosha, I think that's how it is described. Yeah. Samba is Sambele. Samba is the intention, the mind that kind of moves around with different your intentions and carries your mind towards different things. And also Samba is, also due to that intention, then the actions of physical and verbal actions. Also, sometimes we see when we talk about karma, sometimes we might be talking about so sometimes it might depend on the context. Sometimes we might be talking about the karmic result. Sometimes we might be talking about the karmic cause. Sometimes we might be talking about the process of the action itself. So there is the action itself. There is a cause, karmic cause or karmic result, and the karmic result that is. So again, sometimes it might depend on in what context we're talking about. Even though we might be using the word karma, but sometimes we might be actually referring to different, sometimes to result, sometimes to the cause, sometimes to the action itself. Yes.
So can I just ask, just finishing on that one for clarity for myself. So the thought that I'm having now is the result of previous thoughts, like were the conditions of this thought?
Yes. Our present thought is continuity from our previous thought, continuity of that mind thought. It's depending on that previous moments.
Thank you.
But also it can be also influenced by previous also imprint as well, there is also influence of the imprint of that, not only that just the previous moment of the state with the continuity, but also what kind of thought we have, also can be influenced by what kind of imprint we might have. And also other conditions, some other karmic conditions, also maybe immediate other cause and condition can also influence. So as we will go, we'll see, when you talk about cause and conditions, law of cause and condition, we are talking about multiple cause and conditions, not just one cause. Sometimes we tend to kind of look just one cause and we tend to ignore that actually there's multiple cause and conditions that lead to a particular result. Yes.
Next moment of thought is within our power to change. Should we decide that it's not wholesome, then we choose.
Yes, we can. Yes.
It's not predetermined.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I was not.
Yes.
I have a little bit of difficulty with the translation of feeling into sensation, because from my understanding, they're very different. Feeling is just of three types, isn't it?
In generally.
Touch or smell, the sensation. So could you comment on the translation, or how would you like me to?
I personally kind of like the feeling because I'm used to that translation. I'm more kind of used to that translations in terms of
Sensations, like pleasant, pain, or neither pleasant nor pain. Is that right, or am I wrong?
I don't know what exactly English word sensations. I have problems sometimes because I don't know exact definition of many of the words.
Sensation of cold. It just doesn't.
So that could be feeling of cold, feeling of hot.
Yes, but it's not a pleasant. You have to then decide, I don't like the cold. It's unpleasant, or I like the cold, which is pleasant. So we decide what the feeling is going to be like. Not just that.
Whether that feeling is going to be kind of pleasant, unpleasant, definitely it could be depend on how we interpret that that feeling, that sensation. So again, I'm not 100% sure. I think maybe some of you might be better. Which translation is better, feeling or sensation, whether the sensations make sense or not.
It craving comes from our interpretation of feeling.
Yes.
The next link, isn't it?
Yes.
So if you like something, you don't like something, then it's quite different from just a feeling of a sensation of touch or smell or something like that, isn't it? My understanding.
Mm-hmm. Well, we might touch, or we might smell, or we might hear, or we might taste, we might see. Based on that, we might have different feelings, or sensations, feelings. And then whether that feeling become pleasant, unpleasant, then it also depends very much on how we interpret that feeling. Yeah. The feeling, let's say there's a breeze, breeze coming, and you feel that. And for some, they might interpret it as a cool, nice breeze. For some, they might interpret it as too cold or too something, and depending on how they interpret it, can feel something pleasant, desirable, or something unpleasant, undesirable. And depending on how you see the desirable, undesirable, and then based on that, whether you like, dislike, and then, yeah.
So that's two, the sensation and then our response. So that link is K, sensation gives rise to feeling. Isn't it? 7A and 7B.
If we talk about just physical sensations, then definitely feeling is, more to do with mental state. So, yeah. And Sue, you had something?
Yeah, it's political, Geshela.
Political?
Yeah,
Okay, so then I have to be political too?
Trump. Even though we don't vote for him, we're in completely different countries. His effect on people is very profound. Even some of us, we've lost a lot of money in our superannuation because of him. So how can you sort of stay neutral or antidote those feelings when such a strong, strong character arises who has such a negative impact on the world? Even though some people probably think he's wonderful, there's a lot of harm coming. So generally I just turn on the TV or something, but we're going to have to put up with this for a long time. So how do you manage your reactions here?
Well, sometimes I try to understand it as our whole karma of the whole world itself and everyone who's affected in different ways. The more I kind of try to make sense of it, the more it doesn't make sense. The only sense I can make is karma. Anyone like him to actually win the elections, and not only win with such a much more than his first terms, no, it doesn't make sense. And he's not making sense to a lot of people. But he did win that. And it's interesting, for others, many other politicians who might have similar mindsets, view, and who try to behave and act like him, once they found out their previous record, what they said, what they did, they're gone. They're lost. I forgot his name. There's someone who was running for governor of the North Carolina, and yeah. No. He wasn't didn't run for governor, but and he was having a lot of momentum, and he was getting a lot of support. But then they found out some of the comments he'd made in the past and some things he did, and that just suddenly, he was already kind of lost. Even the election happened, and so we saw many of those like that, mega supporters and who run for different officials, and somehow they couldn't sustain. But for him, for everything that he did, everything he said, and all of that somehow he seems to have some kind of energy magnet, that he can fool. Even a lot of people who doesn't believe in many of things he doesn't, of his policy and things, but they were attracted by something. They don't like, if there is a 10, they don't like 8 qualities or 9 qualities of all that. But there is one quality that attracts them. And that was for them, for voting for him. And it's hard to make sense of that. And sometimes when I see, it just doesn't make sense how it's possible, that with everything's, and I think sometimes when karma is writing so strongly, so strong, sometimes it becomes hard, So sometimes I kind of try to look from that perspective, sometimes help. And then, also other times, you just think, he has been shaped, his thought, his behavior, actions, everything by environment that, he was exposed to, that he grew up. There's a lot of things, as a child, what kind of environment he might have grown, and then others' environment that he might be exposed, and all of that, could have effect on, as we discussed yesterday, someone's mindset, someone's action, someone's way of thinking, And so again, while you don't agree with such a harmful behavior and action that affects so many people's life and well-being, at the same time, maybe you can understand where that might be coming from. And so I think the teachings by the Buddha and others were, in the Buddhist teaching, where they talk about what important or differentiate in person's actions, that would be helpful. Because that person's actions is such a harmful and destructive, we should try to force that actions. We should try to stop such behavior and actions. We should try to do whatever in our possibility way to reduce the effect of that, or to stop such action, but at the same time to feel compassion for that person, or at least have the patience by understanding why that person's behave and acting that way. Of course, sometimes this example can be helpful, Sometimes certain people have health issues, mental health issues. And because of that, when someone tries to help them, the doctors, the nurse, their families, friends, when they try to hurt back to the people who are trying to help them, They can shout, they can yell, they can curse, they can even be physically aggressive to the very people who care about that person, for the very people who try to help, and why that person behaves, because that person is not a, good state of mind. They have no control in a way, So while you don't agree with such kind of aggressive behavior, what is, they can feel compassion for that person. The doctor feel compassion for them. The nurse feel compassion. Their loved ones feel compassion for them, because despite this harmful behavior, they still can feel compassion for that person while they try to restrict this harmful behavior and aggressive behavior so no one get hurt. So they will try to do all the action to stop from such harmful behavior that could harm another beings. At the same time, they don't get so upset and angry. Instead, they have compassion, or at least they have understanding of that, why he or she is behaving and acting that way. If we can do it for that person in that way, if we have the capacity, the doctor, nurse, and the family, friends, or even stranger who know those situations, if we have the ability to stop such harmful behavior and action at the same time, not have so much anger and hatred, we have the potential to do that to all other beings by understanding same situations. Any person who behave aggressively, violent way, harmful way, they do that because they are overwhelmed by one of those afflictive emotions. Sometimes it could be ignorance. Sometimes it could be anger. Sometimes it could be greediness. But regardless, or sometimes it's ego, regardless of what negative emotion it might be motivated, but there are moments when someone is overwhelmed by that, overpowered or overwhelmed by that emotion and in certain point. And in certain point, when they are overwhelmed, then they behave and act in a harmful, aggressive way. When they are not overwhelmed by that, then they are not like that. Even with him, you can see there are moments he's, almost, and then there are moments that maybe he's trying to, redo it, kind of trying to undo the damage a little bit. There are moments when he's trying to undo the damage a little bit, and there are moments where he cannot control and he started to just become a dog or someone who has an abuse and then who is feeling insecure and then just ready to jump and attack. And you can see fluctuating all the time. That just clearly shows when he cannot control his ego, when he cannot control one of those emotions, negative emotions, then he started to write, he started to say, he started to do things. But when he seems a little bit kind of calm down that, then he started to see a little bit slightly different, and he started to control a little bit of the damage. And so again, one that you see, and not only we have to switch that, is how we do same to it. All of us doesn't want to hurt the people we love, people we care. Do we? We don't want to hurt. We want to protect them. These are the people we want to protect. These are the people we want to protect them from being harmed and hurt. But at the same time, there are certain times in our life when we hurt and harm them. There are times when we were, impatient, frustrated, upset, and in that moment we say something that was hurtful, harmful. In the moment of that, sometimes we curse, sometimes we say things, sometimes physically, you might even bang the door, bang the table, it happens. And so why isn't it this the people you care most, love most? Isn't it these people on which you try to defend, you try to protect all the time? So why do you do that? Well, In that moment, you lost your mind. In that moment, you lost your mind. And that is why later we regret. We even feel embarrassed, ashamed, all of those different feelings because it is something you didn't want to do, but you did. And why we do that? Because in that very moment, we couldn't control our mind because those, whatever emotions, due to whatever situation, your emotions was too strong and overwhelmed. If it happens to us, can it happen to others? Of course, And as I mentioned yesterday, the good thing for us is even when we do that, the damage is minimum because we don't have that position, But if I have the positions of as a leader of organizations, I will affect more people with my behavior and actions in that moment. Whether it's a spiritual leader or whether it's a organizational, non-spiritual leaders as a country. And when you're the more stronger country, the bigger countries, the stronger country, you have effect more. And so the problem is that's why he was always like that, but it is not like he became like this now. It was his, but because he didn't have that positions before, so it didn't affect level of people that is affecting all over the world. His behavior, action was more or less same before. And because he didn't have that positions, so it affected some people, but much more lesser number. But now because of the where he is, then is having a much more bigger reach and and so, but if you go back to the essence, is that uncontrolled emotions. For some of us who are lucky and fortunate that maybe we have some tools to manage and deal with that. A lot of people doesn't have the tool to do that. They have that same emotion, but they don't know how to deal with that. They don't have the tool to deal with that. So therefore, they are more prone to be overtaken and act those emotions because they don't have the skill, they don't have the tool, they don't have the method to deal with that. So I think when you look from that perspective and all these different way and perspective, why we don't agree with such behavior action because it's, as you mentioned, it's hurting all over the world. All over the world. So then, maybe we might not be so angry and upset. Instead, maybe we might feel compassion by understanding he must be going through so much pain and suffering. So much pain and suffering. It is like, you see a dog, someone who has been abused or whatever, and then because of that feeling of insecurity and unsafe from the past, whatever, and they are always aggressive, And you see aggressive, that just show that dog is feeling so much pain and suffering of fear, insecurity, triggered by their past experiences, And so while we understand that kind of aggressive behavior is not the way, but also you understand where it might be coming from, So I think that is all kind of I can say. Yeah. Mm. Of course. Okay. Let's not go. Any other questions? Yes, please.
If I can just add to that, only 34% of Americans voted for him and 36% of Americans didn't vote at all.
Yeah.
So talking about brute karma, maybe he's there as a teacher to wake people up
Mhm.
and make people take more responsibility and think more. So
Absolutely. And also what I see, one of my understanding is that, of course, we have learned teachings where it mentions when we are overwhelmed by anger, you know, we lose our ability to make right judgment, you know, to use our common sense, to use our wisdom, intelligence, right judgment, you know. And I think a lot of people were frustrated and angry with the previous government and their actions. Many of them didn't agree with him, doesn't like him, but it was more of vote of against, against as a way of frustrations or anger. Because that frustration, anger, they couldn't see how he can do more damage and more worse than the previous government. So they couldn't use that common sense, that intelligence, that wisdom. Normally you have to be able to see that because they were overwhelmed by frustration, anger. With there are a lot of people who I know that who did that, you know, even a lot of Arab people, Pakistanis, Arab people voted for him because they were so upset and angry with the previous administrations that they couldn't stop, from the Israel government from attacking whatever that was happening because they couldn't stop that, and so therefore they were extremely frustrated and angry with that. Despite what he had done to them in the past, they completely forgot that and what he could do in the future. So their mind became kind of blinded, because of that frustration and anger. And there is a lot of that, also a lot of, people who struggle on basic levels, because, yeah, because they have problem with their paying bills because inflation was high, and, because inflation was high, because the wage didn't increase, whereas inflation increased, they were struggling. And a lot of those people, both from Latino, both from African, a lot of those people voted for him. Again, it is a action that came out of frustration and anger. And when you have such a strong frustration and anger in that moment, you cannot make your judgment well. And I think that is one. Many of them regret now, but again, it's too late. But because that is what happened in that moment, And there was interview with some people who said they voted for him by closing their eyes, or voted for him while they feel embarrassed about them, feeling embarrassed themselves for doing this, and because they were so ashamed and embarrassed, they couldn't even look. But the frustration and anger for others was more stronger than that, so they voted for that. So again, many, even among those small number of population who voted and voted for him, necessarily it wasn't vote for him, it was against it was a vote against the other side of the party and government. Sometimes we feel, how can so many people vote for that? You know, but a lot of time it's not vote for that, it's against. And it happened in both parties in every elections. It was more of votes against the other than vote for this. You know, and even that, you know, as I said, many of them were moment of frustration, anger. And again, that just show how much our frustration and anger can do damage to ourselves and many others. You know, not only whatever we are feeling, going through that moment that disturb our mind, but how much damage and it can do for long term. You know, in that moment of frustration, anger, they feel good that I voted against this or voted, and then now they feel the consequences of that, which they will feel that for maybe many, many years, you know. So it is sad and shame, but that is what happens, you know.
Possible to put the political situation in regard to the 12 links of dependent arising. And then if we're suffering because of the situation,
Yeah, because
we're grasping onto it, aren't we? If we let it go, we wouldn't suffer.
if we let go, then we will suffer less, you mean? Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Yeah, as long as we don't have grasping. Yeah. I think
Even thinking about it, we increase the unpleasant feeling, we suffer more. Would you agree with that?
I think if you think about it and then you apply the antidote, then it's worthwhile, it's good. Instead of trying to ignore that feelings and or not think about it, because if you have strong aversion towards that, you know, even we don't think about it actively and we can distract our mind different things, but it is still there. It will, when things happen, then it will come again and again. And so therefore, you know, but of course, if you don't have the antidotes, then better not think about it. I think that is the whole thing, you know. And as some commentary says, if there was no path and cessation, Buddha wouldn't talk about the suffering and cause of the suffering. There's no point of talking about it, you know. But since there is a path and cessation to overcome it, then it is good to discuss that, understand that, because there's an antidote you can apply and you can overcome it, you know. And same things, you know, I think if there is a solution to the problem, it's good to talk about the problem and then also talk about the solution, how to fix it. But if there is no solution, then it's waste of time to think about that problems, you know, because there's nothing you can do about it. But you know, it is just something that your mind gets disturbed by that, you know. So I think those are how we can, just as Shandeva mentioned, you know, if there is a remedy to the such lesson, then why worry and that, you know, because there is a remedy, you just try to fix it. If there is no remedy to the problem, then why worry about it? Because there is something that you cannot fix it. So don't even try to think about it. Don't try to even think about it. So I think I would, yeah, but definitely, it is, definitely we can learn to let go of grasping. That is for sure. The more stronger grasping you have, the more you feel. So page number 3, and there was a, how does one see dependent arising? On this point, the Bhagavan said, one who sees dependent arising as constant, without life force, devoid of life force, true, unmistaken, unborn, not arising, uncreated, uncompounded, unobstructed, tranquil, fearless, unshaken, unmoved, incontrovertible, or infallible, or undeceiving, inexhaustible, and by nature never still, and who likewise see Dharma also as constant, without life force, and so forth. So again, I think there are two ways of understanding. I think one is that, one who sees the most subtle dependent arising, emptiness, and that objects of emptiness, not the emptiness, the object of the wisdom, the emptiness, and the subtle dependent arising, or the emptiness nature of phenomena, or in other words, the cessations, that we talked about previously. What is the Dharma? And then there was the Dharma is that the path at the cessations, or that kind of cessations, the dependent arising, that Dharma, the cessations is constant, is the nature of that is always same. It has been empty of inherent existence. It is empty of inherent existence. It will continue to be empty of inherent existence. Or it has always been dependent arising. It is still dependent arising. It will continue to be dependent arising. Constant in that way. That that dependent arising, that ultimate nature, that Dharma. Hmm? Without life force, yeah, some of them um, I'm not 100% sure because, again, I haven't seen any commentaries to, to that. But again, just like Heart Sutras, um, hmm,
So can I ask, what is life force?
hmm,
What is life force?
it's a talk, so that keep us alive, something that keep alive, you know. Um, so normally, I think in Tibetan is the soul. And, and also there's, in one of the, I don't know whether it's in Abhidhamma Kosha, not Abhid, I think it's Yeah, it might have been Abhidhamma Kosha or Abhisama Alankara, where it talked life is the wind. It explains the life force of life is breath, and the breath is part of the air or wind. So that is how it is. Prana, I don't know what would be prana, because it's like,
It's another word for
yeah, so maybe, yeah.
breath.
So in that, I don't recall it exactly whether it's in Abhidhamma Kosha or that where it says the life force of the life is the breath, and the breath is um, part of wind. And so there is that. So I think, and of course, there is some discussions, then in our debate we have discussion, but there's no what you call conclusions, So then if that is the case, then there's a formless. Brahms has form of naught because they have the life force. Without life force, it wouldn't be beings. If it is a life force, if they have life force, if there's a breath or wind, then there is a form because the wind is a form. And so but again, generally that is how it's described at least in one, as the breath. And I think it's the breath that keeps us alive, and that is so without life force, devoid of life force, true such dependent arising or the emptiness or ultimate Dharma is true, unmistaken, because um, the appearance and the mode of existence is same, the appearance and the mode of existence, there's no contradictions. Whereas with the relative conventional phenomena, there's a difference between the appearance and the mode of existence. The way they exist is empty of inherent existence, but the appearance is appearing as inherent existence. So therefore they are false. They are not true and they are mistaken. Whereas the ultimate truth, emptiness, that depending arising is the nature is empty of inherent existence, and that the mind that perceives it directly, to that mind, it doesn't appear as inherent existence, it appears as non-inherent existence, the way it exists, and therefore is true and unmistaken. Unborn, when we talk about born, then it's born, there was not before, but due to certain cause and condition, and something new has been born. But the nature of that empty of that inherent nature has always been that way. So it wasn't like, it was not that at one time and then certain cause and condition come and then it changed into that nature. When something is being produced, something will be born, something arises, that's how it happens. But since that is the nature of that phenomena, the ultimate nature has always been that. So unborn, unarising, so not arises due to coming of, temporary cause and condition coming together. Suddenly, the arising of that nature, uncreated, and in the same way, something is created, which when we say created, it means something that it was not there before, and then due to coming certain certain cause, condition, or certain thing, then it is created. So again, the nature of the ultimate nature of all phenomena or emptiness is not like that. Uncompounded, same thing. Dvijapa, compound means coming together, aggregated together by many other causal conditions. Again, the nature is not that uncompounded, unobstructed. Imperceivable. What is imperceivable? Okay. What? Tibetan.
No perception.
Mà chung mà chết tu mà chết không bao nhiêu biết bao nhiêu yeah literally biết bao nhiêu means without objects. No.
Because we can't detect it, we can't find it, we can't.
The nature of emptiness, in one way of understanding is, there is no object, there are no non-objects, all in same test as it says. So when we all talk about there's objects or there's without object, we are always talking about relative. Object, non-objects, beginning, and we are always talking about relative. But when you talk about the ultimate reality, then there is, nothing to be perceived. What was again? I think it is in materials. Fundamental clear light. Where he said in ultimate nature, in emptiness, and there is nothing to be abandoned, and there is nothing to be achieved, or in the same way, there's nothing to be perceived, and there's nothing to be unperceived. There's nothing to be meditated, and there's nothing to be unmeditated. In ultimate nature, they all are in the same taste equal. Yes, please.
And dependence arising, emptiness, and same as nirvana or nirvana.
Nirvana?
Same.
Not necessarily. Okay. When we talk about nirvana, we can talk about two kinds of nirvana. Okay. Natural nirvana, and I don't know, I'm using the right English word, and the nirvana of being purified of temporary afflictive emotions. So when we talk of nirvana, we can talk about state of minds, okay? One, the mind that is, so when you talk about nirvana, we are talking about the nature of mind that is free from all afflictive emotions. Okay, that's one nirvana. It is talking about nirvana or peace that is free of temporary afflictive emotions. But the ultimate nature of that mind is also nirvana, which has been always empty of inherent nature. And that ultimate nature of that mind, which has always been empty of inherent nature, is known as natural nirvana. One natural nirvana, because the nature of that ultimate nature of that mind of the arhat has always been empty of inherent nature. Naturally, that is the nature of that ultimate nature of mind. And then that mind that is free of temporary afflictive emotion also is that. So when we talk about that natural nirvana, the ultimate nature of the mind of arhat, that's empty of inherent nature, then that is emptiness. The emptiness of that mind, the ultimate nature of that mind, which is emptiness. Okay. So and so that ultimate nature of the mind, the emptiness, is dependent arisings. Okay. Is dependent arisings. But of course, all the emptiness can't talk as a nirvana. My state, the ultimate nature of my mind, which is empty of inherent existence, I cannot talk it as a nirvana. But when my mind is free from all the afflictive emotions, then that same mind, ultimate nature of that become then natural nirvana. And so that and when we talk about dependent arising emptiness, sometimes I try to explain those are like describing the ultimate nature of objects or phenomena. It's like the two sides of the same coin. It's like the two sides of the same coin. When you explain from the point of view of dependent arising, we are talking about the same coin from the point of tail. When you talk about emptiness, we are describing about the same coin from the point of view of head. We're basically talking about the same coin. So they both are same nature, but is two different sides, like the same coin, two different sides. When we talk about dependent arising, we are describing how the thing exists. And when we talk about emptiness, we are talking about how it do not exist. But basically, we are talking about same object, same phenomena. It's just one is talking about how it do not exist, and one is talking about how it exists. And tranquil, and such nirvana or this emptiness is tranquil. By nature, it's tranquil. It has always been free of that, And when you have that kind of understandings of emptiness and fearless, you become fearless. Just as also in Heart Sutra at the Bodhisattvas having understood have the perfection of the wisdom and overcome the obscuration, then fearlessly, they enter the path. So unshaken, unmoved, mitokpa. Tokpa means, something that you conceive. And mitokpa is not conceiving you know, because there's nothing to conceive, and nothing to shake or move in ultimate nature. Incontrovertible, vidupa, which means, you know, infallible, undecisive, undeceptive, you know, because again, there's no contradiction between the appearance and mode of existence. Inexhaustible, and the nature of ultimate is inexhaustible. That nature has always been empty of inherent nature, is empty of inherent nature, and that nature will be continually forever as long as the objects there. And so it's inexhaustible, whereas others, due to cause and condition, something come in existence, and when there is change in cause and condition, then it comes to an end. It exhausts, it disintegrates, it comes to cease. You know, so therefore, again, the ultimate nature of emptiness is unborn, unceased. So it's similarly, you know, inexhaustible. And by nature, never still, and who likewise see the Dharma to also be constant and without fault, life force, devout, life force, true, unmistaken, unborn, not arising, uncreated, uncompounded, unconstructed, imperceptible, tranquil, fearless, unshakable, unmoved, incontrovertible, inexhaustible, and by nature never still clearly understands the Dharma of the Noble One. So when we understand that emptiness, the ultimate nature, when someone understands the ultimate nature, which is, you know, peace, unborn, unceased, and so forth, you know, then one has understood, you know, the Dharma of the Noble Ones, the right view, you know, the emptiness, the dependent arising. By thus acquiring such a right knowledge or wisdom, you know, see the Buddha within the unsupplied body of the Dharma. You know, so when one cultivates such wisdom knowledge of understanding the emptiness, the subtle dependent arisings, then, you know, then one is able to achieve your highest potential fully awakened state. You know, and that is how you see, whoever sees the Dharma, see the Buddha, means then they see the potential of them, you know, full potential and possible of becoming Buddha, as well as with that path, then it leads you to achieve your highest potential, the fully awakened state, the Buddhahood. And so I think, so now there is more extensive, I guess, explanation of dependent arising. You know, so why is it called dependent arising? It's called dependent arising because it's causal and conditional, not non-causal and non-conditional. Again, with this, what we understand is two factors when we talk about dependent arising, cause and conditions. here it distinguishes two things, cause and condition. Okay. It is important to understand that as we will come when it comes to karma. To apply this, the cause and conditions. So dependent arising means, all these condition phenomena do not arise or do not come into existing without cause and condition, but they come into existence or they arise, they come into productions by depending on cause and condition. It's dependent on cause and conditions. In these connections, the Bhagavan concisely taught the characteristic of dependent arising as follows. Results come from their own specific conditions. Whether it's external result, such as experience of human beings or sentient beings, or whether it's a external result, whether it's the weather, hot, cold, rain, drought, snow, not snow, or whatever, or whatever result is happening is result of very specific conditions, cause and conditions. Whether Tathagatas appear or not, is the true nature of things will remain. Whether Buddhas appear or not, it doesn't change the law of cause and effect. The nature of the law of cause and effect will always be that way, whether Buddha appear or not, whether Buddha explain to it that or not, it doesn't change. It doesn't change whether you believe or not believe. That nature, law of cause, that result, particular result or specific particular cause and conditions. It wasn't the nature and Buddha appeared and then he said and then it became that nature. That nature has been always that nature. That is the fact, that's the nature that has always existed and that will exist. Whether Buddha appear in the future or not, it doesn't change that. Whether Buddha teach on this subject or not, it doesn't change that nature. Based on that Buddha's teaching, whether you believe it or not believe it doesn't change. That is what it is. So again, it is important for us to be aware. I think sometimes, I feel like sometimes people feel you are experiencing result of some karma because you started to believe it. Do you get it? Sometimes people, it sounds like, after I started starting Dharma and I started studying, practicing, and believing karma, and then all these negative karmas started to appear, and now I'm experiencing all the result of this negative karma because now I started to study and learn and I know about karma as though it is like that. And if you didn't study, if you didn't know about karma, then as though it is not going to happen. That is exactly the point here is making.
Geshela, they do sometimes say that because you know something and for it and still do something harmful, for instance, the consequences are great. That's so.
Yeah, that can be. I mean, it is not only karmic point of view, even in our law system, it will be that. If I hurt someone unintentionally and still knowing intentionally if I hurt, I will be prosecuted more highly, isn't it? You intentionally broke the law, or you broke law unintentionally without knowing it. There's a high consequences. You know, when we do something, we know it's not right, you know you are breaking the law, and still you do it. Or someone who doesn't know the law or who doesn't aware that they're breaking the law and then break it. And in a system of judge, there would be a slightly different outcome of what kind of result that they might get from that doing the same actions, but one is with knowingly and one is without knowing it. And similarly, that has also consequences even on karmic level. And it is the true nature that the law of cause and effect.
So it depends on intention.
Uh, Definitely, the intention sometimes the intention are more gross, more we are aware. Sometimes the intention are more subtle. Sometimes, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, just. And the constancy of Dharma, and that is the constancy of Dharma, is that law of cause and effect, immutability of the Dharma. What does immutability?
Never changing.
Never changing, okay. Yeah, the law of cause and effect will never change. As I mentioned, whether you believe or not believe. Yeah. It doesn't change because Buddha appear or doesn't appear. It doesn't change because Buddha taught or not taught. It doesn't change because you believe or not believe. Consistent and dependent arisings, and that dependent arising, law of cause and effect is suchness, the nature of that is exactly as it is, unmistaken suchness, unchanging suchness, our nature, actuality, truth, unmistaken, unerring. Moreover, dependent arisings emerge from two principles. From what two principles? From a causal relationship and conditional relationship. And furthermore, it should be seen as twofold, outer and inner. Outer dependent arising and inner dependent arising. And inner dependent arising is about the 12 links, about the experience of sentient beings. So then in terms of explaining those two folds, of causal relation, conditional relation in relation to the outer world, external world. What is the causal conditions or relation to the outer dependent arising? It is as follows. From a seed comes a sprout. So it is a seed. You plant a seed, and with other conditions, then that plant, that seed kind of transform into a sprout, change into the sprout. From that seed comes a sprout. From a sprout and a leaf. That sprout act as a, causal relationship or cause of that leaf. From the leaf stems. From the stem, pedicel. What is the pedicel?
Part of the plant.
Plant.
It's a part of, yeah.
Part.
Part that supports the flower. Stalk that
Oh,
supports,
okay.
supports the flower. Bottom of the stem.
It's a little cup that
It's a bit of the flower, or a bit of the plant.
yeah.
You boleh Dharma, nama tombo, boleh nhìn. Tombo is like the stem. From a stem, pedicel, from a pedicel, pistil, from a pistil, a flower, and from the flowers comes the fruit. If there is no seed, the sprout cannot arise. If there is no sprout, the leaf cannot arise. If there's no leaf, there's no stem. If there's no stem, there's no pedicel. If there's no pedicel, there's no pistil. If there's no pistil, there's no flower. If there's no flower, there's no fruit. So the sprout cannot arise, so on, until finally, without flower, the fruit cannot arise. On the other hand, if there is seed, and with all the conducive conditions, then sprout will form. And so on, until finally, if there's a flower, then fruit will form. So it talks about gradual, how one cause lead to the next. And that is a result of previous cause, but that acts as a cause for the next result. And again, that becomes a result of the previous cause, and that acts as a cause for the next result. And so how each result is being produced by depending on preceding cause, coming from the previous preceding cause. In that process, the seed does not think, I formed the sprout. So I think here, here they are trying to clarify some of the misunderstanding, misinformations. First, there are certain school of thoughts at the time of Buddhas or even before the time of Buddhas, that believe, things can just come randomly without cause, And in some of those schools, they give examples, they says the roundness of the piece, the piece come in roundness. They say it doesn't depend on particular cause why it is round. It's the way it is. There's no cause. They say the brightness of the color in the peacock, is the way it is no particular cause. And so they give some example of that. And so there are certain school of thought who kind of believe that things can they say certain things depend on cause conditions, certain things doesn't depend on cause and condition. And they give those examples, certain quality of those, like, the roundness and the brightness of the roundness of the piece, the the color of the peacock's feathers, and the throne has you call spooky? Spoke. This is the way things are. They would say the piece depend on cause, but the roundness not depending on cause. There was a peacock is depending on cause, but the brightness of that particular is not. The spoke, the throne will is dependent on cause, but the throneness of that spokeness of that throne is not. So that is Buddha understanding. Each of them, why is it round, why is not round, why is it bright, why is not bright, why is spooky, why is not. It all depends on specific cause and conditions. So therefore, Buddha explained all conditioned phenomena, and all the quality of those conditioned phenomena depend on particular specific cause and conditions. And I think with modern technology in the world now, I think we know that, you can make everything round.
Yes.
By genetically modifying it, because they found what make it round, what make this particular bright or not bright, this color and that colors, why it is spoke or not spoke, or whether it's sharp or not sharp, they can all modify and make it, because they identify the cause that make that, and by changing those. So of course so anyway, so that is one, rejecting the idea of possible of some conditional phenomena existing without depending on cause. And not only it depends on cause, it depends on similar cause. The cause has to be similar. Not every cause can produce any kind of result. Only specific cause produce specific result. All the result doesn't depend on any kind of cause. It has to depend on specific cause. So the cause and result has to be similar, because there are some schools who believe it depends on cause, but then they have different. The cause is permanent, whereas the result is impermanent. And so again, that concept or idea is rejected by the Buddhas, that not only it depends on cause, it has to depend on similar cause. Something permanent cannot produce something impermanent. Something impermanent cannot produce permanent. And so I think that is, and because in some other school of thought, then there is this idea, of course, different school of thought, and some of those thought are everything is created with the thought of creator God, whatever you give the different names, whether it's through the thought of Shiva or Brahma, who said, I'm going to create this particular world, and then I'm going to create everything in that world, how it is. I'm going to create the beings in that and how, so through the thought of wanting to create with that intentions and thought, so how everything's are created, So again, Buddha reject that. And then they say those, such as Brahma, Shiva, permanent soul creating impermanent world, impermanent beings in that impermanent. And so that has been kind of rejected. And so that is, I think, one answer in that question. So in the process, the seed does not think I form the sprout. Seed doesn't have to have that thought, and it doesn't have that thought to produce the sprout. Nor does the sprouting, I'm being formed by the seed. Nor does the result, the sprout, have to think I'm a result of the seed that I'm being produced by that seed. Likewise, flower does not think I form the fruit. The flower doesn't think, doesn't need to think, and doesn't think, I cause or create or form the fruit, the result. Nor does the fruit think I'm being created or produced or formed by the flower. Yet, even though there is no intentions of creating, even though there's no thought and intention of creating, but when the cause and condition come together, they are being created. Do you get it? So therefore, if there is a seed, the sprout will take form and arise. Whether there is the intention or not intentions, and so on until finally, likewise, if there's a flower, the fruit will take form and arise, of course, based on if all conditions are there. Thus is a causal relation to the outer dependent arising to be seen. So basically, it's saying when the cause condition come together, it produces result. They don't, regardless of you don't need to have the thought or the mind of wanting to create, wanting to produce, So with this explanation, I think is kind of countering that idea that how everything is created by the thoughts of those creator, different creator, agents, whatever name you give, God, Brahma, Shiva, all different, Chiso, the primary, the main general primaries, also, different terms by different school of thoughts that explain how things are created by independent on that. And again, we have to this disagreement or different view, we have to go much deeper. The other school doesn't say, the fruit doesn't come from the seed. They are not kind of blinded to not to be able to see that. They are not kind of, confused not to see that. It's not that they are they are more confused and less intelligent than us. You know, the difference comes, you go back, you know, of course, these flowers come from that seed. That seed come from another flower. You go back and then at the very beginning of that, where did the first one came? Because there is no more cause for that you can point out, you know. So when it comes to that, then that is where the difference comes, you know. So then that is where they say it's a creation of different energies or different beings, whatever you keep. But I think in Buddhism, the Buddha said there is no creator, God, or whatever, you know, is due to all cause and conditions. You know, even that the first one is creator and cause and condition. That if we talk about the very beginning of this world, is creation of cause and conditions. You know, in some they could talk about at the very beginning of this we are talking about our very beginning of this our planet. You know, there's nothing; it's just empty. You know, and then they said there's only thing that there is what called the space particle. That's what they said is space particle. And then through coming together of these four elements, you know, slowly, that with elements, then with that space particle, then it started to, I forgot exactly the, first maybe there's the wind, and with that particular, then it creates the heat, and through that heat, and then there's the water, and through the water, then there is then come into the earth, and through that, then things come to an existence, you know, like that. So there is still cause and conditions, but it's not created by some others forces, and that is where it comes differences, you know, whether when we talk about, you know, without cause or depending on that is created by some permanent powerful creators, entities, or it's just depending on cause conditions. Yeah? Yes, Tom?
That question already answered.
Yeah, thanks. Yes.
That is how the Buddha described it, wasn't it?
Which one?
The one with the wings.
Yeah. According to some explanation in Tantra. Yeah.
First course, before the winds, I didn't catch it.
They say in Tibetan, Namge Du, it means space particle, space particle. So then it could be continuity from the past. You know, probably what I would think is the way we explain there is a big bang, and then through the big bang, there's something left, and then after some time it starts create again. Similarly like that, you know, I don't know exactly because I cannot say much about Big Bang, but so it is a reminder from the destructions of past, you know, because it's continuous destruction, creation, you know.
Geshela, are you talking about the 5 elements of the Tantra describes?
No,
Space.
Yeah, but I'm talking in terms of creation, this will how it starts. There is a is with that space particle is there, and then I think it's the wind elements that started to move, and then that started to create heat or something, and then with the heat, then it creates the water, and then with the water, then it started to create the earth, and so slowly that is how everything come into existence. I think there is some. So,
but is that within the context of beginningless time? I mean, that explains the universe as we perceive it.
yeah, there is a beginning for this particular world, but if we think of sentient beings themselves or world in general, then it's a beginningless, but if we talk about specific, then there is a beginning and there's end. And this planet, this world will come to end at certain time, and again, even with that, then also they talk about our planet, our world coming into end by different elements, sometime by the fire element, sometime by the water element, sometime by the wind element, sometime of the earth element at different times, So they say like when our planet is kind of being disintegrated, destroyed by the fire element, the heat becomes so hot, the power of the heat is like the power of 7 suns, and the power of 7 sun is so strong that it can kind of melt and destroy everything. And then that is so anyway, so yeah, that was where understanding so that was where when when here it says it doesn't think that way to create sprout, not the sprouting that I mean created by the, but still that is due to seed, the cause coming together with other conditions, it produces sprout and so on until the fruits, and that is the nature of cause and conditions of dependent arising of external world. So that explains the causal relationship, because there's two principles: causal relationship and conditional relationship that is talked about. And now, so how is the conditional relationship in outer dependent arising to be seen? So that is here, as due to coming together of the 6 elements. These are the conditions. See, and then coming together all these 6 elements that become then coming together, that cause and conditions, then it creates a result. As due to coming together, which 6 elements? What are the 6 elements talking here as the conditions? Namely, conditional dependent arising is to be seen as due to coming together of the element of earth, water, fire, wind, space, and season. So then what are the functionings of each of those elements? What is the function of those 2 elements, 6 elements, and how does that 6 elements help for the arising of the sprout and stem and the leaves and slowly, the flower and the fruit? How does it support? How does it contribute? How does it cooperate? And what's functional? So then here, the earth element function as the support for the seeds. So, in order to plant the seed, you need the earth, the ground, the earth. That is the earth elements. If there is no earth, if you try to plant seed in the space, it will not grow. I can hold, or we can put in the space for a long time and you can water it, especially most of them. I think nowadays maybe there are certain things maybe it might require real dirt, but maybe still they have that earth elements in that, certain earth elements. the water element more than the seed, so water element is, whether it's a natural rain or whether you give water or whether it's a spring, whatever water, through that water element, the seed has been moistened. If the seed is not moistened, then again, it will not be able to produce the sprout. And then all others, stem, leaves, flowers, and that. The fire element ripen the seed, and that's the function of fire element. That the fire element help to ripen the seed. If the seed is not ripened through the heat of that fire element, if it is get frozen, like the seed is frozen under degree, then again it cannot get ripe. It cannot sprout because it needs some heat, so the fire elements function and do that. The wind element open the seed, and the function of wind element is to help to open the seed so that seed can, grow into the sprout, so it can give rise to the sprout. And season down from the I think the space element. The space element perform the function of not obstructing the seed. If there's no space, then it wouldn't be able to open and grow the sprout, But because there is space, then it allows that to give rise to the sprout and sprout to open and nourish and grow, And then the last one, the sixth element is here, the season. The season comes from the seed. So the season play a role in certain seed, certain plant you cannot grow in certain seasons. Some plant, some seed require more heat. Some require less heat. So again, depending on the seasons, so again, those all play cooperative or supporting conditions to transform and the growth of the seed into sprout and the flower and fruit. Without those conditions, a sprout cannot form from a seed. But when outer element of earth is not deficient, even the earth is there, but it's deficient, then again, it will not be able to function fully and grow. But earth element is not deficient and so forth, all the factors, all the other 5 elements are not deficient. Then from coming together, all of those factors, a sprout form as the seed is ceasing. So, the seed started to cease as a seed and it transformed and changed into a sprout, So, yeah, I think maybe today here. So that is how it is dependent on, yes, maybe we can add it. In same way, just previous, the earth element does not think, I shall act as support the seed. Nor does the water element think, I shall moisten the seed. Nor does the fire element think, I will ripen the seed. Nor does the wind element think, I shall open the seed. Nor does the space element think, I shall make sure that the seed is not obstructed. Nor does the season think, I shall transform the seed. Nor does the seed think, I shall form the sprout. Nor does the sprout think, I am formed by these conditions. And when these conditions are present and the seed is ceasing, the sprout form. Likewise, when finally there's flower and fruit forms. I think this one doesn't seem so complicating to understand. Yeah, because it's quite obvious to our eyes to be able to observe. And it will be a little bit more difficult when you try to adapt to something that we cannot see with our naked eyes. So in terms of Dharma, talk tomorrow. The importance of, I personally feel very crucial of here the distinguishing cause and conditions. And with this external world of the plant, with this dependent arising, it's easy to understand and no problem with accepting it, misunderstanding it. But when it comes to the karma, then sometimes there's a lot of misunderstanding. Where I think we don't take the consideration of both cause and effect, the two roles. Just as this plant, external world of plant, the two play role, cause and conditions. Same in ripening of our karmic result experiences, there's a role of cause and conditions. And sometimes people tend to, neglect the condition part. Oh, is my karma? Or is their karma, or is our karma? There's nothing we can do about it. Totally ignoring the condition part. How we can change by changing the conditions, even though karmic seed is there. I see that. And then we'll talk. And then on the other hand, in our materialistic world, the materialistic approach is only talk about the conditions and totally ignore about the cause, the karmic seeds, karmic cause. Whereas with these explanations, Buddha's approach is middle way, not in any of falling in any of those two extremes. And it's very important to understand the karma from that understanding, the law of cause of the karma, similar as law of cause of this external world and planet. So I think there's a crucial the importance of why trying to distinguish those two things here. And not only we try to distinguish within the external object, but also we need to apply that same to the internal dependent arisings. Okay.
Geshela, it's just a question from a lady online.
Yes.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Hello, Geshe Sherab.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you can hear.
So you were talking about the rice seedling and how it came about. And it came about through many conditions like the water and the earth and space for it to grow, all these many things. And then the initial karma for the seed to be planted. So then I was thinking that, like, when you have a situation with another human being, there's actually, it's as equally as complex, like there's many conditions and a cause that's brought that situation about. But sometimes you can look at it and think mistakenly, oh, that person is inherently like this, and this is why this circumstance has come about. But really, it's many, many conditions and causes that have brought you both together. And because of that, there's like this opportunity then to use that to advantage for the both of you. I don't know if I'm making any sense here.
Mhm. Yeah, I think in every sufferings, every pain, every challenge, every difficulties, if you have the right tool and how to deal with, you can make most of it and take advantage or grow from that, and yeah, it's always possible, and there's always that potential, for anyone who experience that kind of challenge, problem, suffering, whatever happened in our life, uh, how we how we how we look at that situation and how respond to that situation and all of that, we, by changing, by looking in something more positive and by trying to change positive, then it can become transformed into something positive, cause of something, better, spiritual growth, and also to change your karma and also create more positive karma. And on the other hand, when we don't, look in the right way, when we try to see it more negatively, and when we respond to it more negatively, then, again, not only we make the things much worse, but then again, we also create more cause conditions for the future as well. So definitely there is, depending on the persons or individuals who are dealing with that, it can go in either way. Yeah. And I'm going to talk a little bit more when it comes to that, about, I think I just kind of touched a little bit today, just before end, and maybe I would like to discuss a little bit more on that, how some believer or practitioners tend to go one extreme, and then on other hand, where when you have materialist approach, when you totally reject the idea of influence or the role that karmic seed also play in a role, not just only the immediate conditions, the karmic role. But when you don't understand that and we don't know, accept and believe, then again we tend to go in other extreme, and by going in either both extreme, then we seem to struggle to manage, but when we are able to find a more middle approach, middle way, then we'll be able to manage much better way, more healthy way, more better way. So that's what, yeah.